How do you know if you need muscle activation techniques? There are many common signs that would indicate that you would be a great candidate for MAT. And on this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast, we are discussing 3 of those. We're going to keep our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back everybody to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are discussing 3 common signs that you would be a great fit and you would need muscle activation techniques. That your body is saying, hey, I need some love in the form of MAT. And so if what we're talking about today is of interest to you, if you are ready to take action on what we are discussing today, that is something that we can help you with at Muscle Activation Schaumburg. All you have to do to see our availability and get on our schedule for your initial MAT consultation and assessment is go to www.matschaumburg.com. Click the big green button that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So, Julie, there are so many signs that somebody's body may be giving them that tells them, yeah, I'm in need of some muscle-specific work in the form of muscle activation techniques. Unfortunately, most of what we are taught throughout our lives teaches us to interpret these signals in other ways. In other ways, meaning like, well, this is the signal that I'm getting from my body, and so I need to take this action. When in fact, the action you need to be taking is getting your body assessed, getting your muscle inhibition addressed with muscle activation techniques. So like I said, there are a whole bunch of them. We're going to discuss 3 today that are very common that we see time and time again with people when they're first starting out on their MAT journey.
That's right, Charlie. I think a really good place to start is to talk about what MAT addresses, because this is the thing that is telling you need MAT. So MAT looks to address and resolve or push in the right direction muscle inhibition, so muscles that aren't communicating well to your brain. And the thing is that we can't really feel muscle inhibition, but we feel the effects of muscle inhibition. We feel the compensation of muscle inhibition. And so those are the signs and symptoms that we're going to tell you about today to look for in your own body to be like, ooh, I probably have some muscle inhibition. And if these things aren't changing and changing quickly, it's a really good sign that you should get on that MAT table and just get these things addressed so that you can get back to living your healthy lifestyle. The first sign and symptom that is probably the number one thing that we notice as the immediate side effect of an inhibited muscle is muscles that are always tight. No matter what you do, no matter how much you stretch, no matter how many massages you go to, no matter how much stuff you do, that muscle or those muscle groups or whatever, that tightness keeps coming back. And it's always there. And it seems to be this reoccurring thing. And really, what that's telling us is that's your body's current solution around this muscle inhibition that's living in your body.
Exactly. So often what we see is people have, say, like tight hamstrings or tight hips. And they're like, well, I stretch it out. And, we'll ask, okay, well, does that work? Are you getting relief from it? And it's usually one of 2 answers. It's either no, not at all, or yes, but only for a very short period of time. Less than an hour, maybe a little bit longer than that. But it's something that it comes back on the grand timeline of things, essentially immediately. All right. And so because of that, there is this chronic tightness that is essentially always there, right? The hips are always tight, the hamstrings are always tight, low back, upper back, into the shoulders, the neck, the calves, the Achilles, the feet, into the forearms and hands if you're using your hands a lot, you're working on computers and stuff. And so the thing that we see with muscle activation techniques, like you were saying, Julie, is that tightness is their body's current best solution. And you might say, well, solution to what? And the solution, the thing that he's trying to solve for is other muscles being inhibited, other muscles not contracting well enough, other muscles having dysfunction. And so because of that, the muscles that are really tight have to do more, have to compensate in order to make up for those weak, dysfunctional, inhibited muscles. And so with MAT, instead of looking at the tight muscles as the issue, we look at the tight muscles as the signal that's saying, hey, there is some stuff going on here that needs to be addressed from a muscle function perspective. And so we are able to assess the bodies, identify where within their body they're having muscles that are inhibited, muscles that aren't contracting well, and then address those muscles directly, get those muscles working better. And what we see time and time again is when the muscles that are inhibited get working better, when we are able to restore muscle function, when your muscles are able to contract efficiently, all that tightness that you've been experiencing for so long, it just naturally goes away. And it's not something that like it needs to take a really long time to go away. It may take, a longer time for your body to figure out how to really get your muscles continuing to contract well. And so that's part of the whole MAT process. But it's like once your body relearns that, all that tightness that you've been experiencing, it just naturally goes away. And you don't need to stretch it out. You don't need to roll it out. You don't need to rub it out. You don't need to do anything to get it out. The only thing that you need to do is get the muscles that aren't working well enough working better, which is the underlying reason why the other muscles are tight in the first place.
What's so interesting, Charlie, is that when we think about moving our bodies in terms of exercise or doing chores around the house, anything where you're moving, right? Any movements, we realize that like, oh, I'd like to pat Charlie on the back so I can pat his shoulder, right? Like I am like volitionally saying like, oh, I'd like to do that. And then my body is able to coordinate that movement. Or I'd like to put these things up high in the pantry, right? We think about that. So actually all muscle contraction, whether you are aware of it or not, is intentional from your brain and nervous system. And I say this because a lot of times when we have tight muscles, tightness is muscles that are contracting and not releasing, right? They're not contracting. They're not stopping the contraction. And we generally will call this tight, especially because sometimes we have like a symptom that goes with it, like it's annoying or it feels pulley or whatever. But that is also there intentionally by your brain and nervous system. And so when we address muscle inhibition, weak muscles that can't contract very well, then your brain and nervous system is like, oh, we don't need those protector tight muscles. We can intentionally let them relax now. So instead of forcing them to relax, which generally, in almost all the cases we've seen, is that it comes back tight very quickly again because the issue isn't resolved. Usually when we address those inhibited muscles, then the brain is like, oh, we don't need those protectors anymore. And so then it releases on its own. And we find that when we solve issues like this, where we're looking for like more core reasons or root causes of tight muscles, then tightness generally will stay away longer because we're giving your body, we're not only trying to help the body move better, and yes, we want you to not feel tight also, but we're giving the body a new solution, a better solution. We always have to think of tight muscles as its current solution. We need to give it another better solution, and that is using all the muscles so that we're not compensating for some of the weak muscles.
Exactly. All right. So this is the first common sign that you are in need of muscle activation techniques, is that your muscles are constantly tight no matter how much you stretch, roll, release, massage, whatever. It always is there. Or if it does leave, it always comes back relatively quickly. All right. Second common sign that you're in need of muscle activation techniques is that your posture always feels off. Now, when we think of posture, we often think of like how our spine or how our trunk is positioned, but it goes beyond that, right? It can be like your shoulder blade, like one shoulder feels winged out, or your shoulders feel constantly rounded forward. It could feel like, hey, my hips feel like they're twisted, or it feels like, hey, one of my feet is that arch is more flatter than than with the other foot. All right, so it's just posture is just in a word for like how your bones are aligned. Right? The positions that your joints are in, the positions that your bones are in. It doesn't just mean the spine, it's throughout the entire body. So if there's anywhere in your body, it could be the spine, it could be, lower in the spine, it could be higher in the spine like your neck. It could be your shoulders, your shoulder blades. One feels winged out, one feels, like it's not able to pull back. It could be that your hips feel like, again, like they're twisted or, they're cocked to one side or the other. Could feel something with the feet. Whatever it is, no matter what you do, no matter what corrective exercises you've tried, or what you've tried to have be smushed back in place, or whatever, your posture always feels like it's off. And again, this is a telltale sign that your body is in need of muscle activation techniques.
That's right. I think a lot of times we have different labels for like posture being off. Sometimes we hear things like a functional leg lift difference, or you just feel a little crooked or off. Or I had a woman this week that said, I realize that every time I sit, I do, I kink to the side, or, I sit with my legs only in one direction. So that's another sign that like, hey, one side of your body is working a bit differently than the other side. And that's why you have like a bias towards one side or the other, or you're holding your positioning off of what we would label center, right? So whenever your body or muscles have like a resting positioning or resting holding place of a little bit off center, or like you're moving a little bit off, then that's a really good sign that there are probably muscles that your body's struggling or your brain is struggling to communicate with. And when we do MAT on these types of muscles or this type of an issue where you feel like a little off kilter, what happens is that your body can find new paths, right, and new roads to be able to use both sides more efficiently or balance your posture in a different way because you are stronger and more connected to all of your muscle groups.
That's exactly right. So what we see with muscle activation techniques is when your muscles start working better, when your muscles start contracting more efficiently and working the way they're supposed to, now all of a sudden your body can be in the positions that you're wanting it to be in and can be there comfortably, all right? There's sometimes a relearning process that has to take place of like, I am used to, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me, but I'm going to describe in words if you're listening on Apple or Spotify or whatever. I'm used to having my body kind of turned a little bit, and so that has been my natural resting state, for a while. And so even when we improve the muscle function, you still have to, your brain's going to have to relearn, oh, no, like my new resting state can be straight, and I can be perfectly comfortable with that. And now I have the ability to go straight and be there. And as we work through the MAT process, your brain's going to relearn how to get yourself centered, how to get yourself, your posture in a better position for you, whatever that means, all right? But what is happening is your body is figuring out how to get into different positions more comfortably because it has the muscle strength and it has the muscle support to move into those positions without all these warning signals going off in your brain of like, oh, we don't have the strength to be here. Oh, we don't have the function to be here. Oh, we could get injured if we go there. Once your muscle function improves with muscle activation techniques, you can go into all those different positions. Your shoulders can come back. Your arches can pop up the way they're supposed to. And you can do so without having to consciously think about it because your brain is now aware that you have the muscle strength and function to go into those positions.
That's right. Now, our third sign that your body is asking for some MAT is that you are losing strength and or awareness in specific muscles. A lot of us, as we get older, we start having issues connecting with areas. Like, I don't know, maybe you regularly exercise and you're noticing, wow, I just really can't activate my glutes right now, or for the past couple years. That's a really good sign that those glutes probably need a little bit of loving with MAT. This also can apply to if you are diagnosed with like a chronic ailment. We find a lot of times some side effects of having different chronic issues is that, one that's coming to my head right now is how your feet are functioning. Like you're unable to walk properly. Like sometimes we see people walking with a flat foot. So even when there are other things going on, a bulging disc or, some kind of chronic ailment or a diagnosed, tendinitis or something. But if you are you cannot contract or you're becoming unaware of certain muscle groups, you can't feel them squeeze, no matter what's going on, it's a really good sign that MAT can help support this area as healing is happening or as you just progress through life.
That's exactly right. So if you're finding like while you're using your body, while you're working out or doing your day-to-day activities, you're like, yeah, I'm not really connecting with my glutes with this. I don't really feel like when I go up and down my stairs, I don't feel my muscles working. I just feel my joints. If it's things like that, I was like, okay, that's a flag that your body has muscle inhibition going on, and MAT would be a great fit for you. The other thing is like, if you're trying to open jars or, do stuff with your hands and you're like, I just don't feel like I have the grip strength that I once had. Opening jars is difficult. Opening bags of chips, carrying things is getting more and more difficult. Things that used to be easy are now feeling more and more difficult. You feel like you're progressively losing that strength. That's a sign that you're having more and more muscles that are becoming inhibited, or that may be a sign that you're having more and more muscles that are becoming inhibited. And you'd be a great fit for muscle activation techniques. Your body's saying, hey, I need to get this muscle inhibition addressed. I need some MAT. So if you're hearing this conversation right now and you're like, okay, yep, I'm raising my hand, high, saying, yeah, I have muscles that are constantly tight, or my posture always feels off, or I feel like I'm just completely unaware of my glutes or my quads or my core, like I cannot feel my abs activate, for the life of me, or I feel like, I'm consistently losing strength in my hands or anything like that. If you're raising your hand for any of these things that we're saying, helping you with those things is our specialty here at Muscle Activation Schaumburg with muscle activation techniques. So if you'd like to get these things addressed and you're in the Chicagoland area or willing to travel to the Chicagoland area, that is something we can help you with. All you have to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to www.matschaumburg.com. On our website, there is that big green button that you can click that says Get Started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We always appreciate it every single week. Share this episode with somebody that feels like their muscles are constantly tight, that feels like their posture is always off, that feels like they're unaware of specific areas of their body or they are losing strength year by year. Those are indications that their body would be a great fit and is in need of muscle activation techniques. And if you wouldn't mind sharing, liking, subscribing, giving us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it helps this message reach more people. So if you found value in what we discussed today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, again, thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.